Welcome, welcome. Come in, sit a spell. Don't let your cauldron overboil too much, though. You are listening to Raven Knight's Nostalgic Corner, Season 1, Episode 3, Hocus Pocus. So rearrange that potion cabinet, feed your pet spider, and grab your moon water because we are going to fly off into the night sky and fly off to the land of Hocus Pocus, ye old Salem. So let's fly. I'm just kidding, everyone. I hope you liked that intro. I was trying something a little different. So I hope I didn't offend anyone too much. So let's fly right into it. It is July 16th, 1993, and in theaters, Hocus Pocus just launched. It is directed by the legendary directing icon, Kenny Ortega. You may know Mr. Ortega for High School Musical, the franchise, as well as the live shows. The man behind the Michael Jackson This Is It tour. The Hannah Montana tour, as well as many movies in the Descendants franchise. So, I don't want to make it all about him, even though I probably could. Sorry, Kenny. But during its release, Hocus Pocus made a $45.4 million box office revenue. However, it did successfully lose Disney $16.5 million. Now, this was caused due to multiple reasons. Number one, the time of year that Hocus Pocus was released. It was released in freaking July. And everybody was complaining it should have been closer towards Halloween, like September, October-ish. But what a lot of people didn't realize at the time was that was around the time of year Nightmare Before Christmas was going to drop. And Disney did not want to compete with another Halloween movie. So, I can understand their method of madness there. But it ultimately flopped, Hocus Pocus. However, through the years and multiple airings on Disney Channel as well as ABC's Families, 31 Days of Halloween, which is now known as Freeform, we had Hocus Pocus basically aired numerous times. And it became what we now call a cult classic. That cult classic movie spawned not only a franchise that is obscenely insane. It had a clothing line at Hot Topic. It has a Spirit Halloween line almost every single year. We had sequel novels. We had Loungefly bags. We had, I'm pretty sure at one point in time I saw a bedding set for bedrooms. Multiple dolls. You know, the CD and DVDs and multiple reprints of that. Posters, as well as a sequel novel, a theme park attraction, which is known as Hocus Pocus Villain Spectacular. Yeah, I know. I said Villain Spectacular because Disney was too lame to name it Hocus Pocus Villain Spooktacular. Don't know why, but they dropped the ball there. I mean, if it was up to me, it would have been Spooktacular because it just goes hand in hand with all things witchy and spooky. And of course, the TV special that is Hocus Pocus 2, which aired on Netflix in September of 2022. Now, Hocus Pocus, the original 1993 movie, starred the divine Miss M, better known as Bette Midler, as well as Sarah Jessica Parker and Kathy Najimy. Now, Sarah Jessica Parker didn't really have, as far as I'm aware, any kid-friendly roles at that time, acting-wise. She was on a adult show. I don't want to say the name because it's inappropriate. As well as Kathy Najimy was working with another well-known actress at the time by the name of Brittany Murphy on King of the Hill, which is now on Cartoon Network every night. Now, if you're curious, Kathy Najimy was Peggy Hill, Bobby Hill's mom. Now, all three of those iconic stars became Winifred, Sarah, and Mary Sanderson. And I personally think they were the best casting for witches that I have ever seen. And I adored all of them. Winifred was the older, bossy, I'm in charge, and I don't care who's beneath me. I'm going to basically steamroll all over you if you get in my way. Sarah was the bubbly yet naive and dorky one, and Mary was just the randomly funny dad joke style witch, and it made it iconic. The thing is, Sarah had her moments as the weird bottle blonde that appeared really unintelligent, but there were moments she kind of was. And Mary was always very supportive of Winnie, and usually was kind of like the second in charge, from how I took it. Now, in Hocus Pocus, you see the opening scene with the Sanderson sisters. And the Sanderson sisters are in what is called Salem Pioneer Village in real life. But it was Salem, ye old Salem. And it was taking place in the 1600s. I'm going to assume the 1690s-ish era, because the reference that they make to the Salem witch trials is pretty accurate for the time frame. But at the same time, I don't know if it's post-witch trials or pre-witch trials. So it's in that, like, that little time frame, if it makes sense. But you meet Thackeray Binks, his little sister Emily, some of the townspeople, as well as the Sanderson sisters, as I said, and you see a quick glimpse of Thackeray's best friend. Emily is lured in by Sarah's beautiful siren-esque singing to basically fall victim to them stealing her soul. Unfortunately, that means Emily was unalived by the Sanderson sisters at a very young age, and her soul was used to keep them young and beautiful forever. Except, as we know, it wasn't forever. So, the Sanderson sisters are punished by a hanging, or being hanged. And then we get transferred into the 1990s part of it, where we meet Max Dennison and his little sister Danny Dennison, who is adorably snarky and sassy. Allison, which is Max's crush. A cute little talking black cat by the name of Binks, who is actually Thackeray Binks in cursed form. And a zombie by the name of Billy Butcherson, who is actually both Winifred and Sarah Sanderson's ex-lover. And Winifred basically threw him in a grave with his mouth sewn shut for betraying her and her love. Now, for many of you through the years, you would notice that Thackeray Binks in cat form sounds vaguely familiar. So I want to give a very proud and happy shout out to an actor who has been very unacknowledged for years by Disney. His name is Jason Marsden. And the reason I'm giving him this shout out is because I've met him in person once before. And I had no knowledge he was Thackeray Binks in cat form. And I feel like he deserves a little bit of attention too. Now, you might recognize that name. You may not. However, if you are a 90s kid, you know the voice behind Max Goof from Goofy Movie. You know the character Kevin from Gummy Bears, the Disney's Adventure of Gummy Bears. You know Kovu from Simba's Pride. You know Chester from the Fairly Odd Parents. Need I say more? If you do know those names, I want to tell you, Jason Marsden, who is the voice of Binks the Black Cat, is the voice of all of them. So, hey Jason, if you're listening, thank you for being part of the 90s kids' childhood. You are amazing. Now, during the 90s version of Salem, Max had traveled with Allison and Danny on Halloween night to the Sanderson Sister Witch Museum. During this time, it was abandoned and shut down because spooky things happened there. Max couldn't see, and he lit a candle, not knowing it was a black flame candle, and we get reintroduction to the iconic troublemakers that are the Sanderson sisters. And they start raining havoc and chaos all over Salem, trying to lure more children in using Sarah's sirenic voice into trying to unalive more children to keep them permanently young and beautiful forever. Unfortunately, like all good movies go, the heroes win, and the Sanderson sisters are ultimately unalived in a cemetery when the sun comes up. And we never hear anything more. Billy Butcherson goes back to his grave, and Binks is sadly unalived, but in a happy sense, he is reunited with his little sister, Emily. And that was the end of that movie. Or so we thought. Years later, on September 30th of 2022, we get Hocus Pocus 2. Now, a few things before I start talking about this is Hocus Pocus 2 had numerous photoshopped by fans posters through the years. And everybody's like, no, we don't need a Hocus Pocus 2. It was perfect the way it was. And I agree to that. It was perfect the way it was. But at the same time, I think the second movie makes it even more perfect. And personally, if they did a third one, I would not be against watching it. But at the same time, it was more like a fan theory style rumor, and nobody knew if it was true or not because we never had any solid confirmation whether it was going to be true or not. Now, my theory is this. The reason we never had it confirmed was because during that time, I have a feeling that the script was being written so that there were several different versions of it and they could pick which one was the best. And even though it was hinted numerous times through interviews by Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker and a few other people, like, oh yeah, if there was a second one, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it type thing. It was never truly confirmed because they didn't know if the script that was chosen would include them. But it was always teased. So I kind of had that theory in my mind that, or actually that feeling that it was happening. Even though people were like, it's just a rumor, it's never going to be. No, 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 no. And here we are today in 2023, and we had a amazing continuation to Hocus Pocus just last year. Actually, I just realized it's coming up pretty soon. It will be the 1 year anniversary on September 30th. So there's that. But that movie is a little unique, and it's going to be kind of hard for me to explain the movie because there is hundreds, if not thousands, of spoilers that I'm going to have to give away to do it. So, excuse my voice cracking. It's just going to be kind of a weird wording, and so I apologize in advance. Basically, Hocus Pocus 2. It has two timelines like the first one did. It's modern day, possibly 2018, 2022 time frame, as well as we are getting a trip back into the 1600s once again. But the 1600s part of it focuses more on an origin story for the Sanderson sisters. And it gives you a whole new perspective on our beloved witches. And also shows a few incidences that could have been motivation for Winifred to push, I call it the fourth wall, and become the evil witch that she is. That's probably not the best way to word it, but easiest way for me to figure out how to word it without giving any spoilers away. But it does make you show a bit of empathy as well as sympathy for the Sanderson sisters. And it also kind of makes you question if they were actually the heroes of the story the entire time. And if the true villains were the people that lived around them during the 1600s. Yeah, I know that sounds so weird, but truth be told, it really does make you question that. Now, we get transported into modern day world once again, where we meet Becca, Cassie, and Izzy. Now, they all go to school together, and I want to believe it is Becca has some form of a witch descendant in her family. And she likes to do a birthday ritual in the woods every year for her birthday to kind of like provide good luck and stuff for her. And she went to the Sanderson Museum where she met one of the shopkeepers a really nice guy, and he gives her a candle. And everybody knows right when I said that where this is exactly going. So, how do I want to word this? So she takes that candle back to the woods. The two other girls, Izzy and Cassie, meet up with her. And they're in a coveted part of the woods where basically they start the ritual. Unaware of what's going to happen. Surprise, surprise. Spoiler alert. The Sanderson sisters are brought back to life again on Halloween. Now, while that may not be a surprise for you, the way the movie reintroduces them into modern day society, I thought was a little bit of a dad joke vibe way. I was kind of as well as okay, I see what they did there vibe. Like, I didn't love how they introduced them, but I didn't hate it. It was just more off putting because I think they could have gone a different way. But basically, they are singing that the witches are back, and from that point on, they start raining terror all over modern day society once again, where they put people under a spell. I think it was in New Orleans, if I remember correctly, or a um, New Orleans Day of the Dead style celebration, and try and chant people into following them again. Now, some of the movie to me made perfect sense, like a good 80% of it. Some of it kind of didn't really make sense. It almost looked like they threw things together to try and keep it from falling apart, which is great. I appreciate the effort. But the one scene that I thought was absolutely weird was the Sanderson sisters walked into CVS and started shopping. Yeah. And then we see Mary and them fly off, and instead of having brooms, like real witches, Mary's flying off on Roombas. Which I thought was pretty cool, but at the same time, I thought it was very dorky. Which kind of fits her personality just a bit, but at the same time, I'm like, that's a stretch. Like, what did you do here? And if I remember correctly, Sarah is on a Swiffer. Yeah, I said that. Still sounds so hysterical. And Winifred is on a broom. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm trying to remember as I'm telling you this. It's hard to remember exactly, but yeah, it was definitely interesting. And I don't honestly remember how the Sanderson sisters were unalived for this movie. I do know that we meet somebody by Mother Witch, is her name. And she's kind of like, my personal opinion, she's kind of like the Dark Lord himself. I actually kind of wondered if it was Lady Lilith, the Queen of Demons. Um, you know, pushing Winifred into some of this stuff. She kind of takes a decent, like, I don't want to say she's a major role, but she does take a decent presence in this movie. And her role does have a decent relevance to it. But it's also kind of like, at the same time, you're like, okay, where's this going? Um, but I remember there was a little bit of a, I guess you could say, redemption scene for the Sanderson sisters. That it kind of starts off tragic, but gives a whole new light to Winifred, as well as gives them their happily ever after. If that makes sense. But it's a Disney film. Like, it makes sense for a Disney film. You can't ever just have an unhappy ending cliffhanger. It doesn't make sense. Especially when Disney's supposed to be the happiest place on earth. So it kind of goes with that vibe. But it wasn't your conventional way of unaliving the Sanderson sisters, if I remember correctly. However, there is a after credits or post credits scene that heavily emphasizes we may be getting Hocus Pocus 3 in the near future. I have never seen a confirmation of if we're actually going to get it. There has not been any talk coming around quite yet about it, except the fact that if it does happen, Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and Sarah Jessica Parker don't mind being part of it. That's basically where it ends. And there is a really big Easter egg in the post-credits scene. Now, spoiler alert. There is a brown box next to a black cat. No, it's not Binks. It's meant to be a subtle nod to Binks, but it's not him. And that box says BF number 2 candle. So, anybody who knows Hocus Pocus lingo, that means black flame number 2 candle. That's the second candle. So, over the course of the Hocus Pocus franchise, that means there is now 3 candles. The original one that Max lit in the 90s, the one that Cassie, Becca, and Izzy lit, and now a backup one. I'll let your minds wander for a few. Now, to me, that's pretty much saying, hey, there's a potential third one coming. But if there is, I really, truly hope it's not the third sequel, or technically the second sequel, third installment that breaks the franchise and ruins it. And I hope they do a really good justice to the Sanderson sisters on their final hurrah and don't ruin what has already been established, because that would break my heart. And I'm sure any Hocus Pocus fan would agree there. Now, I do know this. When Hocus Pocus 2 dropped, it was pretty much viral on social media within a couple hours that there was like over 1 million viewers. I think it was actually like 2.5 million. I don't really truly remember, but it was a lot. And it wound up being one of the most popular movies on Disney Plus for a while. I'm not sure if it's still there, but if it is, I definitely encourage anybody to watch it, because it is amazing in its own unique way. Now, before I sign out, I want to let you know that this audio that you're listening to right now is only part 1 of Hocus Pocus. Yes, there are a lot of things I did not cover in it, but with good intentions, I have a part 2 coming, where I'm going to be discussing a little bit about the book, the sequel book that was released in 2018, as well as controversies that were linked to the release of Hocus Pocus 2. One of them very iconic. And my theories for a third installment on the movie franchise. And if you guys want to listen in, you are more than welcome. If you don't, then that's fine. But I hope you liked this podcast. I am sorry that it's short and sweet, right to the point. There was just way too much information that I didn't want to make this like an hour long. But I wanted to keep it the main focus of it's being, relevant information. And I'm sorry for all the ums and stopping and pausing. But it's just a lot to wrap into it. So, thank you for tuning in. And I hope you have a very spooktacular day. And don't forget, stay happy, stay healthy, and love always. And I'll see you soon.